Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you this evening to the Master of Education information session. We'll just give it about a minute or so, just so we can see people entering right now. Okay, so my name's Mel Barnes. I work in recruitment for the Faculty of Education. Joining me this evening is Dr Helen Cozmescu, who is the course coordinator for the Master of Education and who is also a lecturer in primary language and literacy education. A little bit later this evening, we'll be joined by a group of current Master of Education students who will be here to answer your questions about their own personal experiences in the program. We'll begin this session with an overview of the Master of Education, followed by a Q&A session. And in the background, we have our experts, Ellie and Umair, who will be fielding your questions throughout the session. We do ask that you refrain from sending through any personal information. We'll provide some contact details at the end of the session if you have any questions specifically about your application or offer. This session will be recorded and a copy will be sent out to you in the coming week. Before we commence, the University of Melbourne acknowledges the traditional owners of the unceded land on which we work, learn and live, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Bunurong peoples. We pay respects to our elders, past, present and future. And I'd now like to hand over to Helen for her overview of the program.
Thank you so much, Mel. So as Mel said, my name is Dr Helen Cozmescu and I'm delighted to be here today as the Master of Education course coordinator to welcome you to the University of Melbourne and particularly to the Master of Education course. This is my second year working in the role of course coordinator, but I've actually been working in the course itself in the language and literacy subjects since 2010. So I have a long history working with students and seeing their achievements as they undertake this special course. So I'm currently on Wurundjeri land and I'm grateful to the traditional owners, elders and knowledge holders who are custodians of this land. As Mel said, we'll have a look at the course structure that I'm very pleased to be bringing to you today. And we'll have a look at some of our specialisations, which make this particular master quite unique. And I'm also pleased to have the opportunity to hear from some of our current students and their experiences in the course. So here is a QR code, and you will find you can take a screenshot of that code or you can put it on your phones now. You will find that that QR code takes you to the University of Melbourne web pages that will give you an account of the goals of this course, the way that it's structured. So if you want to go back after hearing this presentation, and find out a little bit more about the way that the course is structured. It will also take you to the handbook links, which have just been updated for 2026. So you can have a good idea about all of the subjects, the 48 subjects that we have in the course. The Masters of Education is the most popular program that we have for international students, and it's amongst the top 3 for domestic students. As you can see here from this slide, it is a 2-year full-time Masters, and we have intakes that begin in February at the beginning of the year and then a mid-year intake in July. So let's have a little look at the way that the course is structured. As I said, it's 2 years full time for those entering at the 200-point level. And I'll explain what I mean by the 200-point level and the 100-point level. It's structured in such a way that you can undertake full-time study. And if you do so, there will be classes available during the day, but mostly in the evenings and on weekends, so that we can accommodate the many students who join us in a part-time basis. A lot of our students work either full-time or part-time and are studying, and so you'll find that we have many evening classes and weekend classes. We do recognise that expertise is brought into this course by the students from the cognitive disciplines that they come from and or from their work experience. Therefore, we do offer some students what we call advanced standing of either 50 points or 100 points. And we call the 100-point advanced standing a fast track program, which of course reduces the length of the course. We have 10 specialisations, and I'll talk about each of those in a few moments in the course, and the subjects in each of the specialisations can also be taken as elective subjects from those who are working outside the specialisation. So, for example, you might want to specialise in educational leadership, so you take the 4 subjects from educational leadership, but then you might be interested in a maths and science elective or a wellbeing elective or a language and literacies elective. So you can you don't have to do a specialisation. You can craft the master to suit yourself. We also have a research pathway that forms part of the course. Now, all of our students will be involved in some form of research. That will either be through a capstone project or a research pathway may be taken. The research pathway is, however, not for all students. Only eligible students may undertake the research pathway, and to be eligible, you need to have a 75% or higher course average. Domestic students, you can explore Graduate Access Melbourne, so you can just Google Graduate Access Melbourne, and they'll be able to provide you with information about admissions, particularly if your studies are below our entry requirement. They'll give you some advice about the sorts of things that you might want to do in order to join us in our course. Melbourne, the Graduate Access Melbourne group can also provide information about financial bursaries, which are available for our domestic students. So let's have a little look now at our specialisations. As I said before, you don't need to do a specialisation, but should you choose to do a specialisation, then you will have that recorded on your testimonial. So many people want that because they're thinking ahead in terms of their work and the way that they might market themselves when they seek employment. But for other students, they are interested in studying more broadly, and so they select subjects from across all of these specialisations. So that's a decision that you will need to make. If you do elect to take a specialisation, as I said, we have 10 that span the disciplines, and they're each aimed at equipping future graduates with the knowledge and skills to engage in problem solving in that particular area of specialisation. If you do take a specialisation, then you take 4 subjects. In order to achieve the specialisation, you need to complete 4 subjects that are linked to the specialisation, each being worth 12.5 credit points. So 4 specialisation subjects times 12.5 credit points, that's 50 points, or a quarter of a 200-point master. The large number of specialisations that we offer makes Melbourne quite unique. You know, we have such a variety of areas that you can choose. So let me take you briefly through each one. The Assessment, Data and Evaluation specialisation has 4 subjects that focus on the way data can be used to improve student learning. Those who undertake this specialisation become discerning users of assessment, and they consider the sources of evidence that are used in a range of educational contexts. This is a very popular specialisation, particularly with school leaders, curriculum leaders that are working with student data. We also have creativity in the arts that fosters a critical, analytical and creative thinking processes for leaders involved in art education. This specialisation focuses on practices, policies, methods and theories relevant to arts education. We also have this is a new specialisation called the Digital Futures and Innovative Practices. This specialisation takes us into the theoretical, socio-technical, pedagogical and ethical dimensions associated with technology. And this specialisation is increasingly popular, particularly in these last 12 months with the ever-increasing presence of AI. Education policy and governance looks at education policies and processes and also global mobilities of policies across the globe. This specialisation is taken particularly by those who seek work in Australia or abroad in government areas or with bodies that look at policy and education more broadly. Educational leadership is another one of our specialisation that focuses on the growing body of knowledge that signals the processes, impact and the importance of educational leadership. So that's half of our specialisation. The other half are here. Equity, sustainability and social change. This specialisation has a very strong focus on equity and diversity in educational settings. So we look here at how equity, justice, diversity and, interestingly, environmental sustainability are closely intertwined. We have the specialisation that I work in, the Literacies and English specialisation. This specialisation focuses on literacy development from the early years right through to adulthood. It focuses on theoretical and pedagogical perspectives that acknowledge the multitude of literacies that we draw on in order to learn and really just to function in our lives. Maths and science education is probably self-explanatory. This specialisation will empower you to consider research-informed science and maths pedagogical practices and the sorts of practices that help to lift student performance. The science of learning specialisation. Now, this is also an ever-growing field that focuses on the psychological and neural mechanisms of learning, again, with the goal to improve student learning outcomes. And finally, and importantly, our wellbeing in education specialisation. And here we examine the theories and skills in managing complex and at time challenging interpersonal interactions. And we know that schools are becoming even more complex than they once were. And so this wellbeing specialisation is taken from those who are interested in wellbeing or who seek to have leadership roles in wellbeing. So that's our specialisation in a nutshell. Remember, 4 subjects in each of those that make up the suite. Now, I mentioned earlier that all students are involved in research. either through the formal research pathway or through a capstone project. Now, if you are taking a capstone project, you have the opportunity to undertake that project internationally. This was offered this year as an option within our Master of Education program. Now, next year, our travel capstone will take students in semester 1 to Europe. They're going to visit Estonia and Poland, and in semester 2 to Singapore. However, I'd like you to take note that the capstone is the final part of the course. So if you're joining us next year in the 200 at the 200 point level, the capstone will be something that you undertake at the end of 2027. The capstone is self-funded. However, there are bursaries and scholarships that are available for students. So I encourage you, if you're interested in an international capstone, to look out for that sort of financial support that might be available to you. And again, for domestic students, Graduate Access Melbourne can help you with that. All right, so I mentioned the 200 point and the 100 point level. Let me just take a moment to explain that further. So students undertaking the Master of Education come to us from all walks of life and from many places across the globe. And they come with many different life experiences, and both from their own lives and from different workplaces. If you are entering at that 200 point level, so you're doing the full 2-year master, even if you're doing it part-time, it requires you to have a bachelor degree, not necessarily in education, and you don't have any experience in educational settings. So really, education is a brand new field for you. For these people, 200 points, you're doing the full course. That full course consists of 4 core subjects in the first semester, followed by 4 foundation subjects in the second semester. And the foundation subjects are called foundation subjects because they are foundational to the specialisations. Each of the specialisations has a foundation subject linked to it, and these foundation subjects give you a taste of what that specialisation might be like. So you choose 4 of those, and that will help you select your specialisation. The 4 core subjects have been designed to support you in understanding research in the educational context. So we know that you come with already a lot of educational experience at the university level, but you don't know educational research and the educational setting. So we cover aspects of policy, learning, how students learn, literacy practices that are foundational to all learning, and educational research. Some students will be eligible to enter at the 150 point level. That means that you don't do the 4 core subjects, you begin with the foundation subjects that then lead into the specialisations. These students are granted 50 points of advanced standing. And let me give you an example of one of our students. So one of our students did not have formal qualifications in education. However, this student had over a decade of teaching at a TAFE college, where the student taught English as a second language to adult students. So even though the student didn't have those formal qualifications, the student came with a lot of knowledge about teaching and educational experience, and therefore was granted 50 points of advanced standing. Now, other students come to us and they have a degree in education and they have experience teaching in schools. They may be teachers who are currently working in the field and who want to improve their practice or to gain a qualification. So we recognise the experience that these people bring and we offer them 100 points of advanced standing. So this means they enter at the specialisation level. They do the specialisation and then the research/capstone component. In addition to our Master of Education, we have a suite of other master courses which you might find of interest or you might find suitable. Perhaps they're more suited to your needs. And you can see them listed on the screen. We have the Master of Evaluation, of Instructional Leadership, of International Education, that's the International Baccalaureate. We also have research degrees. We have the Master of TESOL, the Master of Modern Languages, and a suite of masters in the area of psychology, wellbeing, and interventional learning. For students who think that a PhD or a Doctor of Education might be something that they'd like to study further on down the track, the research pathway is recommended, which of course means maintaining that 75-point course average. However, if you don't do that and you're still interested in a PhD or a Doctor of Education, then we also have courses in research that can be taken before taking on a PhD or a Doctor of Education. So don't feel that you've been locked out of the field if you don't follow that research pathway. For students who are entering at the 200-point level, the 75% is determined on the first 125 points of study. However, for those at the 100-point level, it's the specialisation that we look at. So that's about it in terms of the structure. I'm very, very grateful that we have 4 current students who have joined us today. These students have followed different pathways in their studies, and they've generously agreed to share some insights with us this evening. So I'm going to introduce you in a moment, or I think Mel might introduce you to Nicholas, who's currently studying in the area of research, Samantha, who's undertaking creativity in arts, Hannah, who is undertaking the wellbeing, and one of my students who has just completed her first 50 points, Devia. And so she started at the 200-point level, and it was a delight to teach her, so it's a delight to have her here. So Mel, I'll hand it over to you.
Amazing. And thank you, Helen, for that comprehensive overview. And I do have to send through my apologies because I know that Samantha did send me an update through on her specialisation, but we can discuss that as part of the panel. I'd just like to take a moment to thank everybody because we've got a number of questions coming through on the Q&A. Please continue to send through those questions and I will read them out to the panel. But I think we might start by asking each of our panelists to introduce themselves. Let us know a little bit about your background, so where you come from prior to your Masters of Education, and what inspired you to join us here at the University of Melbourne.
Do you want us to go in any particular order, Mel?
I think I'll let you guys jump in as you see fit.
I'm happy to start us off if you like. Hi everyone. My name is Nicholas, as you can see there on the screen. I also have an update for you, Mel, that you're about to find out about. So currently I'm studying the Masters of Education in the Leadership and Management specialisation. Now, this year I'm finishing it off with a research project. So I think that's why it's there as a research specialisation. Thank you. That's okay, just leave it. Sorry, I've got my daughter here in tow, so she's definitely been a part of the master's journey. Prior to this, my undergraduate was a Bachelor of Science degree with honours, and then I did the grad dip in education in secondary. I've been teaching in secondary schools now for who's counting, a little bit over a decade. And I was drawn to both the leadership and management part, having been a middle leader now for quite a few years in science, but also the research definitely piqued my interest, and I wanted to dig into that a little bit. And I spent this year doing that and thoroughly enjoying that. So, yeah.
Hello, I guess I will go next. Oh no, do you want to go some? No. So my name's Hannah. I am doing the Wellbeing and Education specialisation, so I don't have an update for Mel. And I have completed 3 units of that, doing the 100-point entryway. So I am really excited to hear a bit more from Nicholas, because I'm working towards hopefully taking the research pathway as well, which is really exciting, especially because it's been 13 years since I have been in university. So I did my undergraduate in sociology and philosophy, and then I did the grad dip in secondary as well. And I thought, I don't really like this. And so I didn't go into teaching for many years. I worked in disability sector instead. And then COVID hit. And for some reason, that's the time I thought, now's the time to get into teaching. And I did, and I really enjoy it. For the last few years, I have been working for the department in the Flexible Learning Intervention Pathways program, which supports students with attendance issues in the Wyndham Vale and Hobsons Bay area. So the wellbeing specialisation is really pertinent to my work and has allowed me to explore the issues that I come across in my work. Thank you.
All right, I'll go next. So I've got a background in face-to-face adult education as a workplace trainer in professional services, mostly in legal environments. And also I spent a decade as a Microsoft certified trainer. I specialise in SharePoint and Dynamics CRM and the Office suite. I've got a Bachelor in Training and Development, a graduate certificate in digital learning, and I'm halfway through my master's now. So I've completed core subjects, I've completed foundation subjects, and I'm now choosing between, I'm now choosing between literacy in English, digital futures and innovative practice, and assessment, data and evaluation specialisations. And I have to say they're all really interesting, and it's very hard to choose. I currently work part-time at the university as an e-learning developer. I'm in business services. And this is an opportunity that was made available to me under the Students at Work program. So I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to be working just right across the road from the faculty building. So it's awesome. I'm also on track for eligibility for the research pathway, and I hope to continue at the University of Melbourne through a PhD. I want to conduct research in the adult education space. I guess as a mid-career worker and a part-time student, by the way, although I already work in education content creation and already did before I started at university, I want to keep doing this in the future, but I wanted to work at university level rather than at community welfare, commercial and TAFE, where I've worked before. So that's my story. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Thank you, Helen, for the shout out. So as Helen mentioned, I just finished my first semester, so I'm the newest member in this panel. My name is Devia and I come from Indonesia. I did my bachelor's degree in economics, and coming to UniMelb, I had several years of career in research, but in market and consumer research. So some of you probably wondering why someone with background in economics and career in market research would pursue Master of Education. But in my college, I actually was teaching and assistant, and I also I really love learning, and that's why and implement equitable and the outcome were amazing. Not only in the positive grades, but most importantly, they truly enjoyed their learning process and show high satisfaction toward their learning. So coming from that experience, I was thinking that I want to develop, formulate, and implement equitable and inclusive teaching and learning practice so more students will enjoy learning just like I am until now. That's why I'm coming to Master of Education program in UNIMELB, and currently I'm developing my own platform, Idea for Education, which stands for inclusivity, diversity, equity, and uh, accessibility in education. And after finishing my first semester here, I think the knowledge, skills, and new experience that I gained truly helped me to be able to crystallize what I'm planning to do after graduating from this program. That's my story. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. It's really nice to hear from everybody and your diverse backgrounds that you've come from. I am going to, I'm just reading off my notes here because we've had a few questions come through the Q&A. This is sort of for Helen, but also our panelists as well. Helen, if you could first talk through us a little bit about, someone's wanting to know about, are some of the specializations more popular than others? And I guess whether there's a sort of competitive process in terms of maybe getting into the specializations that you're interested in. And then sort of to platform off that, just each of the panel members, if you could talk through, I guess, what subjects you did throughout the masters and how that helped form your decisions about what you ultimately chose to focus on.
I might start then, Mel, with that with regards to the popularity of the specialisations. Yes, we do have some specialisations that are more popular than others. Some of that popularity also comes because we have systems or schools that may support domestic students with that particular specialisation. So, for example, up until recently, we had the Catholic Education Department that sponsored study for their teachers to do wellbeing. So I think that we had, a huge number of teachers from Catholic education who came through because Catholic education was sponsoring that study. So sometimes department systems will have priorities. Wellbeing has been a priority. In the past and currently, educational leadership is also a priority. So we have some systems that sponsor people with those specialisations. So they are, from a domestic sense, very, very popular. We have the education policy specialisation that also is highly popular, but that's not to say that the others are not. The two new specialisations, the science of learning and the digital future one, this is our first year with those specialisations. So they, not that they didn't have big numbers, they did have big numbers as well, but new in the field. So in terms of then the question around the competitiveness, there is no cut-off with the specialisations. So if more people want to do that specialisation, that just means that we have to staff more people into that specialisation. And so at this stage, we've not had to cut down or to make the process competitive by any means. Should we need to do that for particular subjects, then the people who are enrolled in those specialisations would be given priority above those who would be selecting that as an elective. But we've not been in that situation, I'm pleased to say.
Who do you want to go first, Mel?
Go, Nicholas. I think you're ready to go.
Hot on the buzzer there. So I guess in terms of subjects that I've chosen, so this year, I actually just handed in my master's research project thesis last Monday, so I've got a lot of weight off my shoulders. This year was my the thesis component, so the research component, and that comprised two main subjects, so education research methodology and education research project. Basically, the methodology subject was front-loaded early in the year, so starting, I think, sometime in Feb, and with a couple of assignments there, and that was setting us up for the rest of the year with the research. And then sort of concurrently running with that is the research project subject, where you're basically jumping between the methodology and then the project to work out how to do the research you want to do and work out what you actually want to research, and then building across the year into your finished project. What I found really useful about that was that your ideas that you have at the start before the course and what you end up with, you go through a sequence of really finessing and developing your thinking about your project. And so the assignments are structured in a way that there's this real coherence between them, and you're building something throughout the whole year. So rather than sort of standalone projects, it's really, really useful. That was this year. I actually had a 2-year study break in between. As I mentioned before, I've got I've got two daughters, one of who was in before. In the first year, I did the coursework component, and that was in the leadership and management area. And the subjects, then, you're testing my memory now, it was basically like things like leading the educational organisation, managing the educational organisation, curriculum management, and one other one that I cannot recall. And they were just really, I guess, broad, comprehensive, I guess, units that were really useful practically as a middle leader. So I was, I'm not doing it right now, but during that time I was in the head of science role, and it was just very applicable to my day-to-day work. Like, there's a lot of times I'd be sitting in the lectures, and a lot of it was online. We had dual delivery, and so for a busy parent, busy teacher, it was quite good to be able to do online work there. And it was just we'd learn things and then put them into practice in the classroom within my faculty straight away. So yeah, I don't think that it necessarily deeply connected with the research specialisation, although I have chosen research that's connected to leadership, but that's quite open as well. So yeah.
All right. So when I started, because I'm a part-time student, I've been at this for a little while. I only do 2 subjects per semester and work part-time. So when I started, there was only a 200-point and a 100-point program, and I sat right in the middle with a graduate certificate in digital learning. So at the beginning of this year, I transferred into the 150-point program, which meant that I've done 2 of the 4 core subjects and then been made exempt from the set. So that was quite interesting, because from my perspective, it means that I've done 2 of the core subjects, which I really, really enjoyed. But then this year, I've been doing 4 foundation of the 6 foundation subjects that were available. So I did the data and the science of learning, and I wanted to do that because I was interested in the assessment, data and evaluation specialisation, which is one that's been around for a long time. At that point in time, digital futures and the science of learning, they were the new ones that were coming in. So that meant I looked afresh at the beginning of this year. I think of all the subjects I've done so far, I've done the digital futures one, of course. I've decided probably not to pursue that, mostly because I have a grad cert in that area and I'm working in the space. So I feel like I need to be broader than that. I really enjoyed the educational leadership subject. That was really useful because I'm often the only person working in my space, wherever I'm working. So I'm sort of coming in as my own support. So that was extremely useful. The subject I've enjoyed the most, though, was foundations curriculum. I didn't expect this was an area that I would be as fascinated in as I was, but the main reason I wanted to do my master's as a quite mature age student, really, it was about making sure that I had the theoretical underpinning before I proceeded to research. Even after my grad cert, I still didn't feel like I had enough grasp of theory. And this has just been a wonderful opportunity because every subject has just really underpinned looking at the philosophy of the theory and then applying the theory to the practice. I really couldn't say, I really couldn't rank it higher in terms of relevance to everything that I do. Doesn't matter what subject it has been so far, it's always had that link between philosophy, theory and practice. So it's exactly what I wanted before I embarked on a research pathway and hopefully into my PhD. And I'm saying this, at my previous institution, I had the opportunity to go straight into a PhD, but turned it down to come and do Master of Education at the best education university in Australia. So there, that's my story.
I think what both Nicholas and Samantha have touched on is what a lot of people want to know is, will this help me practically as well? So the theoretical underpinnings, but can I use this day to day? And I can say that for me with wellbeing, yes, that is the case. There's the wonderful theoretical underpinnings like Samantha was talking about in wellbeing. So going straight to the specialisation subjects for myself, there's communicating for wellbeing, which is really about developing those communication skills, which have been really important to me, especially working with young people with trauma and high rate of disclosures. I've actually found myself being quiet a lot more and giving a lot more space to other people. And I'm reflecting on what skills can I use. My favourite subject so far has been, I'm not going to name it correctly, but frameworks for wellbeing. And that is really those different ways of critically engaging and thinking about wellbeing and how we do wellbeing and what even is wellbeing. And I'm really glad I did that early on because I reflect on it a lot in my other subjects. So if it is something you're considering doing, the wellbeing specialisation, I do recommend doing that one early on because it really helps you think about the other subjects. And I've also done leading change for wellbeing, looking at policy and how to effectively implement change initiatives. And you'll do that subject and you'll want to go and change everything straight away. And I'm still taking some time to reflect on all the learning from that. But I can see, particularly for leaders, it's a really, really valuable subject. So yeah, I've really enjoyed all of them, and I've just got one more specialisation subject to go. And yeah, I think that'll be quite exciting.
For me, as I just finished my first semester, obviously I haven't chosen my specializations yet. But coming to UniMelb, I actually already have specific specialization on my mind. I was planning to take the assessment data and evaluation, but then I look at the course structure and subjects from other specialization are also very interesting. So I still figuring things out. So if any of you still not sure or still don't know which specialization you want to take, that's totally okay because I've already finished my first semester and I still figuring out. So that's totally okay. And as Helen has mentioned before, we can also craft and customize our own master. So that's important because that's allow us to take the subject that truly will help us to get there in terms of career and our future aspirations. So that's one of the pros of going to the Master of Education in UniMelb because we have 10 specialization and the subjects are very rich. And even for the course subjects that I already finished this year, I still can decide which one is my favorite because each gives me unique knowledge and I still figuring out what I will take as specialization. So if you are not sure yet, that's okay because you will figure it out after you getting here.
Great. Thank you so much for the really interesting insights from each of you. I've got another question that we've got quite a few questions coming through, so we might just get a couple of people to volunteer their answers. But given the diversity of all of your backgrounds, coming from a teaching versus a non-teaching space, how do you find, I guess, the mixing and the cohorts, and working with people who, as a teacher, someone like you, Nicholas, working with people from diverse backgrounds, and then those of you that don't have a teaching background, how you find working or studying with classmates that have a teaching background?
Sure. So, like I said, I've done most of the study, or I've done all of the study, I think, online, and so the way the lessons work online is pretty good. We do get quite a bit of interactive work and dialogue with colleagues from a wide range of different backgrounds. I think it's easy sometimes to think, oh, I want them to have the same sort of experiences because it makes it a little bit easier. But it's also been really fascinating to see a whole range of different people in education from everywhere, from, international, from across Australia, from all kinds of different organisations. So I guess the diversity has been good. There's definitely a lot of teachers in there, so that if you're worried that you're not going to see any other teachers, that's not true, but you're going to see everything else as well. And you get mixed around quite a lot. So I haven't had group assignments, but a lot of work with others, and practicing things for research methodology or for things like that. And it's been really cool to hear people's stories.
Oh, I completely agree with you there. Hearing people's stories has been one of the best parts. And there is a diverse population. There's people who are coming straight from study and haven't worked. There's people who've been out in the workforce in different fields. There's people who are qualified teachers, which I'm not. I work in adult education space, but I'm not a qualified, school teacher. I found that the stories in class, because we're encouraged to share our experience. In fact, all the subjects I've done have always been about taking what you've learned and then applying it to your background and framework or where you want to be. So it's been so useful because I'm hearing stories from people that have completely different experiences from me, and that is really rounding out my experience, and I'm doing the same in turn for them.
Thank you so much, Helen. Oh, sorry. No,
Sorry.
go, Hannah. No, go for it, please.
I also really value the diversity of the international perspectives and hearing about what it is like and what it's been even like to experience life as a student yourself. We've all been a student at one time. We've all had an experience in education. So it can be really daunting coming into a space as an international student. I've really valued the experience of having those interactions.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Helen, I've got a question it's quite specific, but it's come up in the Q&A to the team a couple of times now. So I'm going to read it straight off. How can I manage to do both a specialisation and research pathway within 1.5 years, given that some of the specialisations are offered in the second semester?
So that's a great question. Not all of the specialisations can be completed within that time frame because they are all of the subjects are not offered both semesters. So that's something that if the time frame is something that you are really, that you have very strict parameters around, then you do need to ensure that you are selecting a specialisation where all of the 4 subjects are in first semester as well as in second semester. So, for example, if I take the literacies and English specialisation, we only have 2 subjects in first semester and 2 in second semester. So a timely completion with that specialisation cannot be done. That's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Helen. Another question, this might be great for you to start with, Helen, but if any of the panel want to sort of add their commentary on this. So what is, and I don't know if there is a typical teaching style, but what is the typical teaching style in the courses? So lecture-based, flipped learning, seminars, group work, and what are the opportunities for networking?
Yes, so yes to all of the above. All of the subjects at this stage are organised with 8 hours of asynchronous learning. So that is learning where you are on your own, not necessarily on campus. It's online learning. You are responsible for those 8 hours on your own. Then we have 16 hours of face-to-face learning. Now that may be on campus if you have an on-campus subject, and those 16 hours can be divided up in a range of ways. So it might be that for 8 weeks you come to the campus for 2 hours each week. Or it could be that those 16 hours are run as intensives across maybe 3 Saturdays, or they could be run in 4 blocks of 4. So whether you are doing that on campus or online, it's still in real time. So you might have an online subject and you will attend that class online in real time. So 8 hours of synchronous learning that students are responsible for. And when I say responsible for, we have Canvas pages or LMS sites, you know, where you find everything, and that will guide you, and all of your material will be there, and lecturers upload PowerPoints and documents, and you have links to the library, etc., all on these sites. 8 hours of that independent work, 16 hours of class work, whether that is online or face-to-face. And I should say that every specialisation has one online subject.
Did any of the panel want to comment about how you found the ability to network with your classmates?
Yeah, I will. I have, as Helen said, at least one subject in the specialisation is online, but pretty much everything else you can either be on campus or online. And the hours have been extremely flexible around work. There's always a session offered after hours if you're at work. I've found that extremely useful. I like being on campus for the networking opportunities, especially. But also with the online subjects and with the asynchronous work, there's always like interaction with other students there. So for example, you'll make a posting, and then once you've made your posting, you can see everybody else's, and you're encouraged to respond to at least one. And so that starts up conversations with people. And by reading everyone else's, you get to realize what everyone else is doing. And you go, wow, that's so different from my experience. Or wow, that's so like my experience. Either of those is really useful. I also think that because I did my undergraduate and postgraduate study entirely online, my graduate stuff during COVID, I was really looking forward to the opportunity to come on campus and meet people. And I still really love the mix and the flexibility associated with that around my my part-time work.
I think I want to add just a little bit. As opposite to Samantha, I did my study full time on campus, and as Helen mentioned, we have independent study, but also face-to-face learning. So I think there are two important things to be able to manage our study here. The first thing is to be an independent learner, because we have to prepare it in order to be able to engage in our face-to-face learning. And second of all, study with strategy, because we won't have enough time to read all of the readings. We have to use strategy in order to prepare each of our class. And I think if we master two of those things, all of you will do okay here.
That's great.
Mel, Mel, I should also mention, because for many people, they may not have studied for a long time, and so they're returning to a form of study that perhaps had not been part of their previous degrees. You know, the fact that we do use so much technology, etc. We also have great deal of support through the academic skills unit, and we have many support services in terms of student well-being as well. And we should make that clear as well, that you know, life happens, things happen in people's lives that affect study, and if that happens, then we do have mechanisms that the university can support people to ensure that people, you know, do complete their studies.
Thanks so much, Helen. Such, really important points to make, just that the audience knows about the support services available here. Another question that's come up in the Q&A is, what kind of assessments can be expected? And just I guess in terms of if any of the panel want to talk about how they found the assessments for their program.
Maybe I'll just start with that one and then I'll hand that over to the panel. Assessments are changing. One of the, as you know, I'm sure that people are aware of, one of the biggest challenges that we've had at the university, biggest challenge, but also great support, has been the rapid development of Gen AI. So that's had to change the way that we consider assessments. So we're moving away from that traditional 5,000 word paper that may have been part of our previous course, you know, even if it was split up into 2 lots of 2,500 words. We're moving away from that, looking at a broad range of assessments. So those assessments may still include an aspect of, you know, essay writing, but we also look at more dialogic practices, multimodal presentations, oral presentations. There really are a range of assessment practices, and this is an area that we are continuing to develop. We often find too that the only time that people are required to do essay type writing is for universities. So we also do try to reflect what's out in the workforce in the way that we construct assignments.
Great, that's a great overview, Helen. I'm just mindful actually of the time. So I would really love, as a final question, to ask each of our panel members if you could give one piece of advice to our audience. So whether that's getting through the master's program or the application process, or any piece of advice you'd like to offer somebody, I guess, having been in their position in the last few years, what you would like to pass on to our audience.
I'll give that a go. As soon as you've got in and you've got access to your subjects, start your readings and make a plan. You know, balance things out over the weeks. They've got a wonderful wall calendar, which is in both physical and electronic form. It's the first thing I do is to grab one of those and pin it up on the wall. So my partner knows as well when I'm not going to be like busy, you know, available. Yeah, that's really important. Get the jump early. Don't wait till like week 3 to engage with the material, because there's so much great stuff in the learning management system. Canvas is fantastic. And you know, things have changed so much since I first started studying. All the articles are available, you know, in online format. You don't have to go and dig through to find things. So if you get the jump and get your reading done and make a plan, I think you're going to be really successful.
I'm happy to jump in. I kind of have 1.5 points. I want to echo what you said there, Samantha. A little bit of it is around expectation management, yourself included. So when you've got your calendar there for your partner or your family or colleagues, letting them know what you'll be doing and what you won't be doing, and also, you know, what you can't do. So you only have so many hours a day, and there is a lot of reading involved in every subject that I've done so far. And being realistic about what you can and can't do is useful. My main thing I want to say is if you're sitting on the fence, like if you're coming to this webinar to be curious about it, I'd say go for it. It's been such a rich experience going through this whole process, both the coursework component and the research component, and I definitely recommend it. So if you're unsure, choose yes.
I'll go next, I guess. Lots of good tips there already. Mine would probably be gentle on yourself, especially if you've been out of study for a while. Reading and writing academically is a skill. And I can very clearly remember the first reading that I had to do for the frameworks unit. And I thought to myself, I can't read. I'm an idiot. This is so hard. And I read it and I read it. But the more I've read and the more I've written, the more I've developed the skill and the more everything makes sense to me. So remember that it's a skill and not an innate ability. So just be aware there'll be a little bit of implementation dip, but you will get through it.
Okay, I will go next. My first to read, and read. Even if just go through the internet and read from the conversation or a medium, because most of our time in working on our assessment, 4% of them is like finding and brainstorming idea to write in our assessment. If you keep yourself open what's happening in the world, what issues are, you can cut those for time, because you can have a list on what to write on your assessment. And the second tip is come to every class with open eyes and open ears, because you can absorb so much and gain so much from the class interaction. And my last tip is focus on works best for you. My unique and they learn in their own for you, go for it. But if you look around and people do this but you don't think that will work for you, focus on work best for you, because as I said, each learner is unique, and focus on what's getting you here.
Amazing. Thank you so much to our panel, Divya, Nicholas, Hannah, and Samantha. We just absolutely really appreciate your perspectives. For those of you in our audience who are local, we would absolutely love, particularly if you've not had a chance to come and visit us, next Tuesday, not Wednesday, I've had Wednesday on my brain for this webinar, we will be hosting a welcome from the Dean. You can scan the QR code on your screen and hear directly from Professor Marek Tassar, who will be talking. It's a really wonderful event. We'll have food, drinks, and a second student panel that you can hear from. So if you are free next Tuesday, the 18th, please scan the QR code and join us on campus. I'd also like to extend my thanks to Dr. Helen Cozmescu for hosting our session tonight as well. And we hope to see you at the University of Melbourne shortly.
Mel, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Bye. Hope to see you.
Thank you all.